from Amos. Alas for those who are east of Zion, and for those who feel secure on Mount Moriah. Alas for those who lie on beds of ivory, and lounge on their couches, and eat lambs from the flock, and calves from the stall, who sing idle songs to the sound of the harp, and like David improvise on instruments of music, who drink wine from bowls, and anoint themselves with the finest oils, but are not grieved over the ruin of Joseph. Therefore they shall now be the first to go into exile, and the revelry of the loungers shall pass away. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
We will read Psalm 146 responsive. Hallelujah! Praise the Lord, O my soul.
I will praise the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being.
Put not your trust in rulers, in mortals in whom there is no help.
When they breathe their last, they return to earth, and in that day their thoughts perish.
Happy are they who have the God of Jacob for their help, whose hope is in the Lord their God.
Who made heaven and earth, the seas, and all that is in them, who keeps promises forever.
Who gives justice to those who are oppressed, and food to those who are hungry. The Lord sets the captive free.
The Lord is the eyes of the blind. The Lord is of those who are without him. The Lord loves the righteous.
The Lord cares for the stranger. The Lord sustains the orphan and widow, but frustrates the way of the wicked.
The Lord shall reign forever. Your God of Zion, throughout all generations. Hallelujah.
The second reading is from 1 Timothy. Of course, there is great gain in godliness combined with contentment, for we brought nothing into the world, so that we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with these. But those who want to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, and in their eagerness to be rich, some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains. But as for you, man of God, shun all this. Pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, gentleness. Fight the good fight of faith. Take hold of the eternal life, to which you were called and for which you made the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. In the presence of God, who gives life to all things, and of all in Christ Jesus, who in his testimony before Pontius Pilate made the good confession. I charge you to keep the commandment without spot or blame until the manifestation of our Lord Jesus Christ, which he will bring about at the right time. He who is the blessed and only sovereign, the King of kings, the Lord of lords. It is he alone who has immortally and dwells in unapproachable light, whom no one has ever seen or can see. To him be honor and eternal dominion. Amen. As for those who in the present age are rich, command them not to be haughty or to set their hopes on uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, generous and ready to share, thus storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of the life that really is life. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. how the story impacts us, where we find ourselves in these stories, how they wrap our lives up in the midst of them. So today Jesus tells us a story about a man. He was a rich man, although some people may just call him a greedy man. I kind of go with that greediness because rich and greedy are kind of two different things. There can be plenty of people with lots of money who are very generous, and there can be people with not so much that keep it all to themselves. Well, our greedy man today lived in a very large, extravagant home. He was dressed in purple garments. He wore fine linen. And in that day, purple was color of the extravagance. Purple dye was very expensive. It was made from very small snails that were found out in the sea. And each snail, when crushed, could give you one drop of dye. So it took millions and millions of snails, and it took hundreds and hundreds of hours of human toil to make enough dye to make even one purple garment. Does that qualify as being greedy? And the cloth this man wore as his underwear was the finest linen that you could make. Why was this guy so extravagant about his clothes? Because he could be. The man threw a feast every day, and in that day a feast was something you maybe had once or twice in your life. Maybe a wedding feast. Maybe a feast when something wonderful happened. We hear a feast when the prodigal son came home. People did not have a feast every day, but this man invited his friends over, and they feasted day after day after day. Now, there's one thing about this man. He had everything that money could buy. It was amazing what he could do. He had everything you could possibly imagine except a name. Jesus never gives this man a name. Imagine that. Think of the importance of a name. But there was another man in the story who does have a name, and his name is Lazarus. And loosely translated from the Hebrew and Aramaic, Lazarus means the one God helps. Well, Lazarus, laid by the front door of this man's house, day after day he was there. Lazarus was very poor. He was too poor to buy food, too sick to work. He was at the mercy of others. He would have been quite satisfied with the scraps that were thrown out in the garbage bin every day. He would have been happy with that. But day after day, Lazarus became weaker. Sores began to cover his body. Lazarus was so weak that he could not shoo the dogs away that came to lick his sores. In that day, dogs were the filth of the earth. If dogs came near you, boy, you were really on the bottom. This made Lazarus quite a sight to behold, quite a person to avoid. But on the flip side of that, for the Jews of that day, their duties were threefold, very simple duties: to pray daily, to fast one day a year, and to give alms or donations to those who were poor. Three things were required of them: pray daily, fast once a year, and help those in need. And certainly if anybody fit the bill, needed to be helped, it was Lazarus. came in and out of the front door of this house. Imagine how many people have seen Lazarus laying there. Imagine how many times this man who owned the home has looked out and seen Lazarus there. We would think someone, sometime would have helped Lazarus. But finally, the inevitable occurred. Lazarus succumbed to his sores and his illness. Lazarus died and was carried to the bosom of Abraham, a place of great honor. Abraham was the father of the people, way back many generations. To be laid in the bosom of Abraham was as good as it could get. And as fate would have it, the unnamed man also died and found himself in a place of great distress. How fortunes can turn in a moment. From the fire of torment, the man recognizes Lazarus. Isn't that interesting how he ignored him on earth, but while he's laying there in the fires of hell, he knew his name? It's not like he hadn't known Lazarus before. And he says, Father Abraham, tell Lazarus to come on over here. Bring me a drop of water. It's kind of warm down here. My throat's a bit dry. It's rather hot. The man had not lost his sense of entitlement. Lazarus, wait on me. Remember your place in the world. To which Father Abraham responds, Oh, dear child, during your time on earth you had everything. You lacked nothing. But Lazarus here, his life was a living hell. He did not get help from anyone. Now here he is comforted. Besides that, man, look at this great ditch that's between us. No one can cross over. There are wild beasts. There are all kinds of things that keep this gulch so that no one can pass. But the man's not done yet. He still seems to be blind to the situation. He says, well then send Lazarus over to my family. I don't want my brothers to suffer as I am. To which Abraham again responds, well, that's nice of you to think about your family now. It's nice of you to remember Lazarus' name now. But maybe they should listen to Moses and the prophets. Pay attention to what they said. Maybe pay attention to what's happening in the synagogue. And the man shook his head earnestly. No, that won't hurt. That won't help because remember they are entitled. They think the laws don't apply to them. But if someone comes back from the dead, maybe it might get their attention. And Abraham shrugged his shoulders. If they won't listen to Moses, if they won't listen to the prophets, I doubt that they will listen, even if someone rises from the dead. Imagine that, even if someone rises from the dead. They did not know at that time about Jesus' death and resurrection. But to the people that Luke was writing to, they were familiar with that. They won't pay attention even if someone rises from the dead. This is a powerful parable, because when have you been as Lazarus, needing help and no one notices? When have you been like the unnamed man, seeing those in need and acting like they do not exist? Remember, this is another parable in the series of Jesus' response to the scribes and Pharisees. They had challenged him and said, Jesus, why are you eating with tax collectors and sinners? And this was one of Jesus' responses. This is why I am eating with tax collectors and sinners. There's another Jesus is not talking about works righteousness here. Jesus is not saying that if you take care of the Lazaruses of the world, it is your ticket to heaven and eternal luxury. And if you ignore them, you will go to the fires of eternal suffering. That would take this parable out of context. It would take the parable out of the context of the Gospels themselves. Rather, this is the strengthening of Jesus' teaching, that the poor may be forgotten by the world, but they are never forgotten by God. And they should not be forgotten by the followers of Jesus either. You know, we do this not because it comes with great reward. We do this because it is what the followers of Jesus do. So as we ponder these words, let us pray. Lord God, open our eyes to see those around us who are Lazarus in our midst. Move us past our self-righteousness to help raise up the lost and the lowly. And when we suffer, give us the courage to know that you are